Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle. Join me each week as I explore mental well being with insightful conversations, interviews, and personal stories. I believe that mental health is a vital, if not more important than physical health. My goal is to break down the stigma of mental health and mental health treatment and empower all of us to live a better life. And when I think about how I approach psychotherapy and what the difference is with me versus somebody else that you might see, I approach it from a very different perspective in the sense that I've already been affiliated with the University UCI Medical Center and did psychotherapy in terms of cognitive behavioral and really staying cognitive, automatic thoughts, why we do what we do, which is very important. I mean, for me at this point, what I refer to that is your core. So we all have a core operating system. Kind of think about it as a computer, right? So you have all these files in there, and all those files are all your childhood files, everything that happened, everything that's happened to you throughout your life. So when you look at those things, you see that your pathology, and we all have pathology because nobody is raised in an igloo, has a great bearing on your reactivity to certain situations. So, for me, if we can uncover that core level response for you, that's what I'm looking for. Um, the cognitive part of psychotherapy is very beneficial, but for me, it seemed to leave half of it undone, right? Because you have your body and your spirit, and everything is connected to your mind and your neurons and everything that happens in your brain. So to me, it felt like just the cognitive behavioral therapy was leaving out half of the psychotherapy, right? Part of the psychotherapy is the understanding. Now, back in the day, we all did Freudian psychotherapy where you sit there and you went into psychoanalysis and you had your psychologist or your psychiatrist tell you everything about your childhood and how that affected you and that's who you are today. And all of that has truth to that. That isn't something that's not valid. What it is what I'm kind of relating to is that core level of responding. So for every behavior, there is a purpose. All behavior is purposeful. Everything you do has some purpose. It might not be a good purpose or a bad purpose. I'm not somebody that likes to use labels, even diagnostic labels. If you come in and you tell me I have ADHD, I have, anxiety, I have depression, okay, what are your symptoms? What is inhibiting your daily functioning to not make you feel the best you can feel? That's what I want to know. The diagnostic label is a label. It can be used as this coping mechanism that says, well, I can't do that because I have ADHD, and I can't do that because I have depression, and I can't do that because I have anxiety. Instead of understanding these are all symptoms of you're not synthesizing that core that operates with you into understanding it, releasing what doesn't serve you. And that is part of the reason why I offer the sound healing, well, why I have also healing modalities in my treatment. So in my treatment, there's the sound baths to center you and to get your vibrational, energies cleared. Reiki as well. And I mix those with the psychotherapy because I think for some people, they have a really hard time with anxiety, right? And if you're taking medication, that's fine. That's great. There's no stigma to that, which is another topic I will get into it at another time because I think my goal is to be able to do what medication can do neuronally in the synaptic sites for you to utilize your own brain's capability and through neuroplasticity to journal and meditate and all of the different, other healing modalities that we do have available to add into the core level work that you need to do. Also, when we used to do psychoanalytic work and kind of try to get to that core level of functioning, that was something that everybody wanted to do for like 5 years. okay, let's just stay here for 5 years and go over my childhood. I do see it from a different perspective. Those things are very valuable. You have to release what no longer serves you. You got good things from your mom and good things from your dad. You got bad things from your mom and you got bad things from your dad. So you look at those things if you want to label them that way. You have growth experiences and you have non growth experiences, right? You have things that you say, I'm never going to do what my mom did, or I'm never going to do what my dad did. That's still a growth experience, right? You learned that that was maybe not the way you wanted to be and how you wanted to handle your life. So my focus is more on figuring out what those core level responses are that you have that filter into everyday decision making every day. Why do I think like that? Why is this always my reaction to somebody saying this or somebody saying that? And if we trace that back, it usually is, some core level response that, you have. So when I look at patient care very differently from this point, and it is a much more comprehensive approach in giving you treatment modalities that will elicit you to figure those answers out on your own. My goal is not to have anybody in psychotherapy for, longer than 6 months. If you work my journal and we work weekly and you work on really understanding that core level response in yourself, understanding where it comes from, how it got there, and releasing what doesn't serve you, that's the battle. The ongoing battle is just the journaling and the day to day and releasing your thoughts. When you write some, when you start with your morning gratitude and then you do your daily thoughts, part of that is just releasing that into the universe, whether it's God, source, universe, whatever it is for you. Um, and in and of itself, that's the cathartic event. So I developed a journal, which I have available on my website as well as my YouTube channel. And I utilize that in my practice as well as the meditation journal, because meditation is huge. I mean, meditation, we talk about, how, again, these things neurologically happen, right? Your hippocampus shrinks, your amygdala shrinks, and there's all these great things. Now, those are elements that cause you to be depressed and or anxious, right? If you have a large amygdala, you're going to have more anxiety, because anxiety is fear, and that's the fear response. So, and then the hippocampus in the brain, the volume of the hippocampus, again, same thing. The more volume you have, the more depression you have. That's very simplified, but it doesn't really need to go any deeper for the purposes of what I'm talking about. The purpose of even bringing that up is the idea that you have the ability to change your neuronal activity. You have the ability to change what your thought process is. So if we can figure out what that core level responding is, just working on, okay, and being truthful and being honest with yourself. Because the reality is, you can't hide from the man in the mirror. And eventually, pathology comes out, whether it's you're unhappy, or now you're looking for a relationship outside of your marriage, or you're not fulfilled with your relationship. And instead of being communicative, you would rather just, scoop behind the back and not really, let anybody know your thoughts, feelings, or actions. So it is imperative that I think all of us, I mean, nobody was raised in an igloo. All of us need to figure out what that core level responding is and figure out what to do about it to ensure that you're happy, that you're peaceful. And how that happens is you releasing that core. I mean, that core kind of holds you emotionally hostage, right? It's keeping you being reactive to things that, if you process it through and you work it through, you realize, all right, that belonged to my mom, my aunt, my uncle, my grandma, whoever it is. That's not a belief that's true today. So I think if you if you get caught up in the anxiety is, part of that core level functioning that says, okay, you've already wired those systems neurologically to say, when I hear this, and this, then I get anxious. And when I get anxious, I know I'm anxious because now I've made my heart rate go up, or I don't want to be around anybody. I have stage fright. I have social anxiety. I have, whatever it is that you have labeled that as being your anxious response. So when those things happen, that's when you look at that and you think, well, why am I doing this? And you go back to the mantra, right? All behavior is purposeful. You are doing it for a reason. So you just need to really open and look at that and say, okay, well, what's the reason behind that? And does that still fit today? A lot of our stuff is stuff that we've had for a long time, and it doesn't belong to you anymore. What happened in your childhood belongs there. And I am not minimizing at all the childhood traumas, any of that, because your body holds on to that, and that is part of the psychotherapeutic process with me. My practice, again, I said, is very different than most psychologists. So, but that's a huge thing, because once we can clear it from your brain, we can clear it in your body. There's a joke that says your tissue has issues. Well, you have cellular memory, so your tissues do have issues, and your body absorbs all of that. And it's such a heavy load for everybody to carry. And the answer is simplistic in the sense of you have to look at it and you have to deal it and you have to figure out your core level responding. And then it's like a hamster wheel. You think about people, the hamsters in the hamster wheel, and I use that analogy in therapy, is you just get caught up and you start ruminating. That's being in your hamster wheel, because you're not fixing, altering, or changing any one of those thoughts by thinking about them 24/7. You're just not. But if you can understand them in the context of your core, release what no longer serves you, then you are now in a much physically, I mean, you physically feel lighter because you're not carrying all this stuff that doesn't belong to you. And these are the choices that all of us have, to take control of our life and to not victimize our day to day, because it's easy to do. We all, again, nobody is raised in an igloo. Most of us have had some type of, you can relate it to as trauma. You can say, okay, it's trauma. Sometimes it is very traumatic, and it's traumatic to you. It doesn't really matter what the situation is, right? You can't say that, you can't put it on a scale per se. Well, my trauma was really worse than yours, because you don't know the underlying pathology. You don't know what's going on in anybody's mind. And, that is part of the bigger societal problem, right? Is that, you'll see these shirts that say, just be kind. You don't know what somebody's going through. And that's absolutely true. You don't know. You have no idea what anybody else had to go through to be where they are today, to do what they're doing today. So to project and kind of look and say, well, I had it worse than him, or I had it worse than her, and so I'm going to just stay fixed with that thought process, and that's what I'm going to keep with me. And the bottom line is, you can do that. You can come through this world and leave this world in that same place. My goal and my hope for everybody is that I can instill in them that piece of freedom and calm and peace, that they have an understanding of their core pathology. They have an understanding of the way their core functions. And it doesn't eradicate it, it doesn't make it go away. What it does is, once you have an understanding, then you have the ability to modulate your anxiety, modulate your depression. And I am not saying that people don't need medication. Medication is, my husband is a forensic psychiatrist with me in our practice. I am very medication based. I mean, we take medication for diabetes, we take medications for high blood pressure, for we take a statin so we don't have a stroke. We take all these meds, or even we take all these vitamins, right? Now it's NAD, and now it's NAC, and now take this, take that. And those are all great things. We think nothing of doing that for us to feel better and us to feel good, right? So again, psychotropic medications, SSRIs, SNRIs, all of the medications, they work on the synaptic sites. They work on the neuronal activity. They work on changing those compounds, increasing and decreasing, you know, levels of dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine in your body, in your brain. So that's what they do. But if I could also give you something that could help you do that on a daily basis, i.e., through the journaling, what a great deal, right? And then you have the ability to also, once you work through that core, once you understand that core, it doesn't have that control over you. What happens is then you have the ability to modulate your responses, because then you know what? Now you're making that connectivity for your responses, right? Even if you start to say, I'm anxious. Well, why are you saying you're anxious? Because your body's starting to feel anxious, and that's telling you your brain you feel anxious. And now you say, I'm anxious. So if we can relabel those pathways and you can change that thought pattern and that thought process of how we label our thoughts as, and I think a lot of us label them as good or bad, it's all or nothing. um, but once you can figure out your core and be solid with that, then you have the ability to look at all the other things that have transpired in your life and say, okay, well, that makes sense, that doesn't, and that fed into that behavior and that didn't. And now I kind of have a better understanding. And it's not that that core level response will not happen. That core level response will always be there. That will never go away. My goal is not to make it go away, but to have you understand it. And then your responsivity to things becomes shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. So that's really what I'm going after. That's really my thought, is if we can connect the mind, body, and spirit together, we can make it so that you have the ability to do those things yourself and give you a skill set, your toolbox of things that you can do so you can stay centered every day. I mean, brain health has to equal physical health, right? You can't do one without the other. So the idea that you say, you know what, every day, yeah, I'm going to work out because I have to, because it's going to make me feel better. It's the same thing for your brain. You have to journal. You have to spend time in meditation. Obviously, you don't have to do anything. But if you really want that cohesive feeling in your life, of feeling that you can take care of anything, you can do anything, then that's really kind of what you have to look at. You have to put those things together, synthesize all that. And that is really my role, is to guide you in that and give you feedback and do psychotherapy, but from a very different perspective, a perspective that is not so focused on the actual diagnosis, behavior. I want to know symptoms. I want to know how you feel. That's what we need to explore. It doesn't matter. You can come in and tell me you have 10 different diagnoses. That doesn't matter to me. What are you feeling today? How can I help you feel better? And feeling better isn't a diagnosis. Feeling better isn't a label. Feeling better is figuring out what belongs in your brain, how you want your brain to wire and fire, and what you really want to do with your life in terms of how do you want to feel? Do you want to keep stuffing these issues? And because they manifest somehow. They always manifest. And again, nothing's a value statement. So you look at it and you say, well, I don't really care that, I don't have that great of a relationship with all these people and I'm fine. And okay, then you're fine. But for those of you that really want something more in this life and they really want to feel better and you want to feel in control of feeling better, you want to feel that you are encapsulated and everything that's going on in the world, you're still in your non-permeable bubble that you see it, you acknowledge it, but you don't let it into your vortex. You don't let that into your body. You don't allow those thoughts to come in and predicate your behavior, your reactions, and things like that. So I think for me, I love what I do. I love that it's a different focus and it's a different um, pathway. I think. I think it's a funner pathway, really, because you get to journal and you get to meditate. Not you get to, but you realize how important that is for your brain health. So I think for me, this podcast is going to be based on questions. I do have a YouTube channel that you can leave your questions at if you'd like me to answer some questions for you. But mostly the podcast will just be going over different things that I kind of come across in my practice, as well as things that you might want to hear. So hopefully, I will see you again at the next podcast, and you have a great rest of your week. Thank you.